Hi everyone, this is my video for Law 301 Week 5 where I'm going to be breaking down the burglary case between Frank and Billy. I am going to be arguing that it is burglary. So as defined in the paper, burglary is the breaking and entering of a dwelling of another at night with the intent to commit a felony inside. So that is our rule of law, but before we get into that, we must understand the facts of the case. So to start off this whole story, Frank is looking for Billy because Billy owes him $100. Frank quotes, "I'll show him what happens to people who don't pay their debts." He's carrying a loaded handgun for hours wandering around the city. This is showing possible intent for violence. It starts to rain a little heavy, and so Frank looks for shelter, and he finds on what's appearing to be an empty house, and he goes in it. When entering this house, Frank breaks the window, climbs inside, goes upstairs, and waits until the rain stops. At this point, Frank did not know whose house it was, and he later finds out that it's Billy's house. He finds this out when he walks downstairs and he sees Billy unexpectedly. Billy notices the gun and reaches behind his back. Frank fires and he misses. Frank runs away without knowing what Billy's reaction was. Okay, so those are the facts of the case. So when applying our syllogistic argument model, we're going to take the rule of law, which would be the definition of burglary that was provided. Then we're going to decide with the minor premise it would be that if our situation here applies. So to start, breaking and entering is the first part of this definition. Frank undoubtedly breaks and enters into this house. He broke a window and climbed upstairs into a house that he was not invited to. And undoubtedly also he went inside. This is also the dwelling of another. Regardless of whether he knew it was Billy's house or not, it's someone's house. It was also at night because he had been wandering around the city for hours looking for Billy. So considering that all of these meets the requirements for burglary, the big legal question is whether he had the intent to commit a felony upon entering the house. And when we're talking about intent here, we can just say that it's when you have an objective or a purpose to bring out a particular result or to engage in some type of conduct. You're choosing to participate in something knowing that there is going to be a particular outcome. So the question is that did Frank really intend to commit a felony the moment he entered this house? And I'm arguing that he was intending to commit a felony. At the time of entering the house, Frank was actively searching for Billy while holding a loaded handgun, suggesting that he was intending to commit some type of felony against Billy. Earlier, he had threatened Billy, saying that he would show him what happens if he didn't pay him back, also suggesting that he would have clear intent to do something to Billy. Both of these facts combined suggest that if Frank were to find Billy, he would have committed a violent felony. The facts in the case demonstrate that Frank was prepared and willing to use violence against Billy if that came about. And although Frank later claimed that he entered the house to escape the rain, his threats and possession of a loaded handgun suggest the inference that he intended to confront Billy at some point and commit a violent felony. So although he did not know that the house was Billy's upon entering, he was literally in the pursuit of trying to find Billy to commit a violent felony against him. And we know that from his threats and the loaded handgun he was carrying. So our major premise would be the rule of law. It would be the definition that I provided earlier. The minor premise would be the facts of the case, and the fact that the major part of the minor premise would be the fact that Frank was intending to hurt Billy at some point, and he happened to be in Billy's house. This would flow into our conclusion, which could say something like, because Frank broke and entered the dwelling of another at night while carrying a weapon and possessing the intent to commit a felony inside, Frank did in fact commit burglary. So the biggest counter-argument to all of this would be that Frank entered the house because of the rain and not to commit a crime. That he did not know Billy was there, that he believed the house was empty. The shooting only happened after a surprise confrontation. This would be saying that Frank formed the intent after the entry and not before. And our definition says that burglary requires intent at the moment of entry. What I have to say to that is that he was already looking for Billy. He literally entered the house while he was in a pursuit to look for Billy. He quoted, "I'll show him what happens to people who don't pay their debts. No reasonable person will search around a city for hours, make threats towards someone, and have a loaded weapon if they're not intending to commit a felony against someone." These facts suggest that Frank had the intention to commit a felony against Billy from the beginning. The facts show that he was prepared to commit a felony against him, which this in itself allows intent to be inferred at entry. And this is why I believe that he did commit burglary. Thank you.